Hello, everyone. This is Jax West from Stephen Avery Project and MAM Gossip on Facebook, as well as Justice with Jax. Today, we are going to discuss the Melissa Calusinski case. We have talked about this case several times, as this is the case that I am closest to, that I have been advocating for this case for several years now, and I know the family as well as Melissa Calusinski, and I talk with her regularly, and I visit her also at the prison. Um, Here's a couple pictures from past visits at the prison with Melissa. There's one. That's not Melissa. Mm-mm-mm. There's another. And another. So, Melissa is somebody I consider a good friend. Hello, Bryce. And I got involved in this case. Actually, it started with the Stephen Avery case. And because that was the first case that I really got involved with in my advocating, and there's Stephen Avery Project in the miscellaneous groups that I do. And Stephen Avery's attorney, Kathleen Zellner, also now represents Melissa Calusinski. And I live in Illinois, and this is an Illinois case. And I actually got involved in a different case and attended the court hearing for that one. And Melissa's dad was attending that hearing as well, because this was still the same attorney, Kathleen Zellner. And so Melissa's dad was showing support for the another Illinois wrongful conviction case and attended it. And so I met him, and then that's when he asked me to get involved in Melissa's case, and I've been with it ever since. And Melissa's case is one of the more obvious cases of an innocent person in prison for something they didn't do. If you haven't already, there are two 48 hours episodes on Melissa's case. The first one is called Blaming Melissa, and then the second one is called The Fight for Melissa, and they're a couple years apart. Both feature Kathleen Zellner as Melissa's now attorney. And if you are looking for real information on her case, you can go look at those two episodes. Then there is KathleenTZellner.com. She has a page that is dedicated to the Melissa Calusinski case, so in her notable cases, and she'll have links there where one of the hearings that Kathleen did a couple years ago for Melissa, it was filmed. And so I believe she's got a link to where you can watch that proceeding. And um and then you can read her various filings, and then also in Googling Melissa's case, you can find an interrogation video from the case. Now, she was interrogated, I wrote it down because I'm really bad at remembering numbers, for 6 hours. And the video that you can find online is only 3 hours of it. And video that they used in court to prosecute Melissa of her interrogation was also heavily edited and not truthful. So, but even from just watching the 3 hours, you can see from that that she is clearly innocent. So, Melissa Calusinski was a 22-year-old girl who was working at a daycare center. This daycare center had multiple locations, and she had been working at a different location first and had just recently moved to this location that her sister Crystal was employed at. Melissa worked in the toddler room. And so there was this 17-month-old baby, Benjamin Kingham, who was sitting in a bouncy chair. And Melissa noticed that he wasn't seeming himself. And that then he was kind of turning color, and there was a foam coming from his nose. Melissa yelled for help. Her sister Crystal came rushing in. The 911 was called. Crystal was trying CPR, and they transported Ben to the hospital, and he was pronounced dead. And that happened on January 14th, 2009. Then 2 days later is when Melissa was brought in for questioning. And they questioned everybody from the daycare, but they also separated them all, not just by room. They were at separate police departments. Melissa was interrogated for 6 hours. The thing you need to remember is that police officers are trained to break people. This is why something like waterboarding is not acceptable. Hello, cat. Because waterboarding is so tragic, so hard for the person to deal with, that your protecting yourself kicks in, and you're going to say anything you need to say to get out of that situation. That doesn't mean you're going to get the truth. And what are you going to say? What they want to hear. Because you know that is the only way they're going to stop what they're doing. Now, while waterboarding is way more severe than being locked into this little interrogation room, you still get the same effect. And so they question Melissa without a lawyer present. Now, Melissa's 22, she is an adult, but she is still entitled to have somebody in that room with her. But she didn't know that. You know, when people read you the Miranda rights, people don't pay attention to that, to what Miranda rights mean. And then there are times that they will read the Miranda rights to you, and they're just saying, this is just protocol. It's just what we have to do. You're not being arrested. We just have to do this before we talk. So then you also have no clue. You're being arrested. You're being detained. You're a suspect. You don't know any of that. So Melissa didn't know she could ask for a lawyer and that she didn't have to answer their questions and that she could have gotten up and left. You can say to them, "Am I under arrest?" If you are not under arrest, they can't detain you and you can leave. So they interrogate her for 6 hours and 79 times. Melissa tells them that she didn't do anything. And they kept saying things because police are allowed to lie. We know what happened. We know that something happened that day to Ben, and you are the one that was in the room with him. So what did you do? And Melissa keeps saying, "I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. Didn't do anything." People always say, "I would never confess to something I didn't do." You don't know until you are in that situation what you would do and when they are breaking you down. Well, Melissa has a lower IQ. Anybody can fall victim to this. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter your IQ. It They are trained to do this to you. And all they want is for you to make the pieces they're making up fit. So eventually they say to Melissa, "We know this is an accident. Just say it's an accident. You're going to go home." Melissa thought she was going to go home to her parents and her puppy Oreo. Keys in her hand. She's thinking she's going to leave. So I'll just say this and I'll go home. And she has been in custody ever since 2009. Prior to Melissa working at this location, this boy had come to the daycare with a bump on his head. And the daycare is like, "Oh, wait, he can't come in here without clearance from a doctor." Because the daycare obviously is going to want to protect themselves and not be held liable for this kid having a bump on his head. And so the parents took this boy to a doctor who said the kid was okay. How that kid got that bump? I don't know. I know a couple of different theories, which I will not go into because I'm not going to put those pieces in there at this point. Melissa didn't even work at the location when that bump happened. One of the things that the people that were interrogating her were from a group of the police department called the Lake County Major Crimes Task Force. And Lake County, Illinois, so that is northern Illinois, is the wrongful conviction capital of the United States. There are several high profile cases from Lake County. They involve the Lake County Major Crimes Task Force and this same man that was interrogating Melissa, George Valenko. So Melissa is being told in that room that you know, that the medical people, the coroner, whoever, that this boy had blood on his head and that the coroner's able to feel a crack. There is a fracture in the boy's skull. So they're like, "So we know this happened." Melissa's initial defense lawyer, when given the X-ray, and this is something that you can Google, Melissa Calusinski X-rays. There are pictures where they have a side by side. One is the picture that Melissa's original defense was given of the X-ray, and the other is what the X-ray actually looked like. And the prosecution plays this game that we have seen in several cases of, we're going to send this to the other side in some way that now doctors it so it doesn't look like it's supposed to look. But then they have this defense of that of, well, all you needed was this special program that would be able to open it the way it should be opened, this technical crap. Whether you're a prosecutor or a defense attorney, what these people should be doing is trying to find truth and justice, not let's manipulate things so we win. Whether or not the defendant is guilty or innocent and you are on the guilt or innocent side, you should have that common goal of, we want to know who really did this. Or in Ben's case, could it have been an accident? This boy was a known headbanger, that he would sit on the floor and whip his head back and hit his head on the ground. He's also 17 months old, a toddler, new walking. Could you fall and hit your head? So to instantly jump to, somebody had to have done this. Mm, but it's a baby, and people don't want to accept that maybe there could be an accident and somebody has to pay. And in the case of the Lake County Major Crimes Task Force, they want to be famous and they want these major cases that you can see on the news. So a tragic accident of a boy falling and then later dying. Hello, Dixie. While it could make the news of the that this happened, it's not going to make the news like somebody murdered a 17-month-old child. So people who are supposed to be about science and finding the truth for the victim actually are testifying that they saw blood and felt a fracture, and that you could see a fracture in this X-ray, that when given to the defense, you can't see anything. You can't tell anything in that X-ray. Then when there's a new coroner and Dr. Rudd really looks at it and gets the real X-rays, you see this boy's head looks like a giant light bulb. And there is no fracture. Even if Melissa had dropped this boy, even if Melissa had forcefully thrown him down, which she did not. Don't edit this or whatever to make it look like me saying Melissa did that, because Melissa absolutely didn't do any of those things. But if Melissa or anybody had done that, the kid's brain isn't instantly going to swell up like that and kill him within an hour. Science doesn't support that. It is not possible. So, this boy fell, or if they want to say somebody hit him, this happened prior to Melissa even being at that daycare. It wouldn't have happened that day. Just can't happen. And the fact that they are going to doctor evidence, and doctor being a key phrase there, that you have medical professionals lying that we saw blood and could feel a fracture and see a fracture when there is none. What is wrong with you people? Melissa has been in prison since 2009. This family lost a child. Ben was a twin. So he has a twin sister that the family is still raising. So there's not that you ever forget your lost child, but you have that child's twin to remind you every day that Ben isn't there. And to just make up this story and put this blame on Melissa, how does that make anybody feel better? That you haven't cost one life, but two. You've taken Melissa's life from her. Melissa was and is a very sweet girl. I just visited Melissa yesterday. Um, And we were talking a little bit about the case. We don't typically talk about her case because I don't want to talk about her case. She has to live it every day. So I feel my role as her advocate and her friend is we're going to talk about, The Walking Dead. We're going to talk about the weather because she's an aspiring meteorologist. I'm going to talk to her about those things and take her mind off the case. But yesterday, I had said to her that y they even if she was to get released today, they have taken away the prime of her life. She's 35. Sure, she can still get pregnant. It's harder for her at age 35 for women to get pregnant. It's not that it doesn't happen, but you took away the prime of her life. So she could where could Melissa be today if they hadn't framed her for possibly an accident that happened where Melissa was nowhere around? And then the damage it has done to her family. Her mom and dad are such strong supporters of Melissa. They talk to her every week. Melissa has one specific day this is the day she calls and talks to her dad. And then another day, this is mom day, because she gets a phone call is 20 minutes. And, so she talks to her parents every week. We know from the Avery case, family members who are not supportive of the people who are in prison and who do not make the person who is incarcerated a priority. No matter what is going on in your life, you can take 20 minutes out of your day to take a phone call from an inmate. Nothing in your life should be as important as that person and trying to brighten 20 minutes of their day. Yeah, there are some things that are uncontrollable. Melissa has called me. She called me just a few weeks ago, and I was on the other call on some business call and I couldn't click over. So, yes, there are times that you can't take the call. I'm not saying it doesn't ever happen, but like in the Avery case, Brendan is told November is his mom's hunting time. We're not visiting you. We're not talking to you. We're doing our hunting thing. Melissa's parents make Melissa a priority. They go visit her. Now, they visited her a lot more pre-COVID. Now there are restrictions on visits, and Melissa's mom works full time, so she can only go visit on the weekends. So I don't have a real job, so it's easier for me because I can go on a weekday, but even then, in these COVID times, you have to schedule a visit at least 7 days in advance online, and they're only allowing 10 visits per shift. So the day you wanna go could be all booked up. But Melissa's parents make it a priority, and they're going to see her at least once a month right now. I just scheduled because they don't know how to do the appointments online, so I schedule their visitations for them, and they're gonna go see her. The next visit is Christmas Day, which is so exciting. Actually, when they visited her just last week, her dad called me when they were driving home from the prison, and he's like, "We want you to make the appointment for Christmas Day." And they were afraid that the it was gonna get filled up really fast. So they're like, "Do it right now," so I made their appointment right away for Christmas Day. Anything Melissa wants, her mom and dad are gonna make sure she has, but Melissa won't ask for hardly anything. She's always saying, "I'm okay, I'm good, I have what I need, I'm okay." It it's it's just really sad that you're supposed to be able to trust police and lawyers and judges, but you can't. Something Melissa said to me yesterday is when she finally goes free, she does not wanna be famous. She doesn't wanna be around people. Um, she just wants to, ride off into the sunset and live her life. But I told her that I understand. I understand that, but I said, "I feel it is very important for Melissa to become an advocate and to get it out there to people that don't talk to the police." I told her so many people don't think it will happen to them, and they always think if there's going to be any kind of corrupt police stuff that it is done to people of color. And Melissa is this pretty little white girl with blonde hair and blue eyes. She's got blue eyes, right? Or does she have brown eyes? I might be thinking of her mom. Um, so I feel it is important for people to know Melissa's story, that it absolutely could happen to you. There is zero evidence other than her coerced confession that Melissa did anything to this boy. And anybody who watches that interrogation can see it is a coerced confession. And Melissa didn't do this. Melissa can't hurt anything. Her job currently at the prison is she does pest removal. And so she was talking to me yesterday about snakes and how, at the beginning of November, I think she said it was, um, she found this snake and she's like, "If it's just a baby snake like this," but she's not hurting anything. And something that really, really bothers me is due to the nature of her alleged crime, the prisons use inmates for service dog training, something Melissa would be so good at, and they won't allow her to do it. I wanna read to you. I posted this on the Justice with Jax, um, Facebook page. So this was an article that we came across this past weekend. Um So it's from a website that is a Republican website. I am not a Republican. I am a Democrat that works for the Democratic Party. We're not going to get into politics in this video. But so this is an article I never would have come across cuz I'm not a regular to this. Oh, sorry. Now that I'm on this page, I just saw something really disgusting on there. Um so Here in Illinois, we have 2, possibly 3 seats on the Illinois Supreme Court that is going to be available, in the 2022 election. One Republican that is running for that seat is Daniel Shanes, who was the judge in Melissa's case. And then somebody else who is running as a Republican for the same seat was the Lake County Sheriff at the time of Melissa's case, and also a part of the Lake County Major Crimes Task Force. That was all part of framing Melissa. So now that these 2 guys are running against each other, the one dude wrote an article to smash the other dude. I'm gonna read you this article in its entirety, but what really got to me in this, that you'll see at the end of this article, is they bring in Melissa's case that has sent it. I'll get into that. All right, you ready? I'm going to read this now. An op-ed by Mark Curran, former Lake County Sheriff and candidate for Illinois Supreme Court. The day that Fox Lake Sergeant Joseph Glinowitz took his life, Lake County made national headlines. Um, okay, so the Glinowitz case, and that case made national news. You may or may not have heard of it. Glinowitz, let me spell it for you in case you want to Google it. Glinewicz. So Glinowitz and his wife were stealing money, and they were gonna get caught. Not Wisconsin, Illinois, Bryce. Um, so they were going to get caught, and it was going to be a big deal that this sergeant and his wife were stealing money. So what this stellar officer did is he killed himself. But he killed himself and made it look like he was murdered murdered by Black people, of course. So when it first happens, everybody's like, "Oh my god, this cop was killing my Black people, this poor cop and this poor woman, and let's take care of them, blah, blah, blah." And then it later comes out he went down with the ship and sacrificed himself to try and protect and save his wife, so killed himself. Yeah, okay. Um, George Valenko recently featured at a press conference with Illinois Supreme Court candidate Daniel Shanes was the commander of the and in this article they just keep using the initials for Lake County Major Crimes Task Force. So I'm just going to say task force from here on because that's a mouthful all those words. Um was the commander of the task force that day. Created in response to a need for investigative resources for police agencies in Lake County, the task force has had one of the worst reputations in the country for wrongful convictions. Falenko, now remember, Falenko is the person, one of the people, there were two men that were in the room that were interrogating Melissa. Falenko is one of them. Falenko had been serving as the commander of the task force for several years prior to the Glinowitz case. In my opinion, Falenko was not qualified for this position. He was a small town police chief who spent most of his career in telecommunications, not as a police officer. Yet, as a police chief, he was able to get the other task force board members to allow him initially to be a detective with the task force. Incredibly, and perhaps only in Lake County, Illinois, Falenko was able to convince the task force board to allow him to be the commander. The job of the commander should be to supervise the officers assigned to the task force. However, Falenko used this position to make himself the lead interrogator in several high profile murder cases. While I served as sheriff of Lake County, I was on the task force board. During this time, I tried to recruit sheriff deputies to serve on the task force. I had a hard time finding them. The perception among deputies was that Falenko and his friends got to do all the fun, read high profile cases with media attention, assignments, and others did the grunt work. It's in part why, at a task force board meeting months before the Glinowitz case, I called for George Falenko to step down as commander of the task force. I quickly learned I did not have enough support to make that happen, in part because George Falenko had made himself the face of the task force in the media. The problem as sheriff was that many people thought the task force fell under the Lake County Sheriff's Office. It didn't. But that didn't stop the perception from tarnishing the Lake County Sheriff's Office and our dedicated professional team. When Glinowitz's body was found, I was personally on the scene in Fox Lake within hours. Initially, it was reported that Glinowitz had been murdered by three unknown assailants. However, I knew with relative certainty that it was a suicide shortly after being briefed. I was made aware that there had been an active theft investigation into Glinowitz the night before, and when his remains were found, it was clear to me that it was very likely not a homicide. Ooh, and now I'm remembering too what they were stealing money from. So Glinowitz was also running like the junior police cadet thing, when little kids get to pretend to be a cop type thing and cops are like mentoring these little kids. That's what they were taking money from. um mm, mm, mm. The other task force board members and I were getting daily updates on the investigation. I was extremely concerned about the direction the investigation was headed. It did not appear they were even considering a suicide. The task force had a prior relationship with the coroner, Dr. Thomas Rudd. Rudd is the one who, to this day, is one of the biggest supporters of Melissa Calusinski's innocence. And Dr. Rudd, like in the Stephen Avery case with the coroner who wasn't even allowed on the scene, Dr. Rudd cares about finding truth and justice for the victim and to be that victim's final voice. Okay, so with the coroner, Dr. Thomas Rudd, and they were not sharing information with him. I called Dr. Rudd to tell him to make sure the pathologist performing the autopsy looked at the possibility of a suicide. Dr. Rudd said the pathologist had ruled out suicide. I told Dr. Rudd the pathologist was likely wrong and he needed to look at all the reports. Dr. Rudd then complained that the task force was not sharing all of the information with his office. Eventually, the pathologist was able to get all of the reports and he concluded the death was almost certainly a suicide. Dr. Rudd was also concerned that tax dollars were being wasted and people were contributing to charities in Glinowitz's name. Thanks for the update, Bryce. George Falenko then began to tell the media that Dr. Rudd's well informed comments had jeopardized the investigation. Dr. Rudd was attacked mercilessly by many for claiming that the beloved G.I. Joe, as Sergeant Glinowitz was known, would even contemplate committing suicide. Additionally, I shared my concerns with Joe Ahern, CEO of the 100 Club, an organization that raises money for the families of fallen officers. And Ahern thanked me and said that the organization had already given the family, quote, some money, unquote, and was in the process of giving the family more. Ultimately, it was definitively concluded that Glinowitz committed suicide after realizing that his many years of criminal activity would be exposed. It was estimated that the investigation cost taxpayers more than $300,000. The actual cost of the largely inept investigation is likely several times that number. When it was ultimately revealed that it was suicide, Folenko could only say how surprised he was by the results of the investigation. Lake County has always had the reputation as a place where you need to get along to survive. Too many have paid a heavy price for calling out the corruption and lack of professionalism in the Lake County criminal justice system. Ready? Here we go. For example, George Falenko was also the chief interrogator in the case of Melissa Calusinski. Calusinski, then 22, worked in a daycare when she was charged with the death of a young child in her care. The case also garnered national media attention. On the television show 48 Hours, an interview of Calusinski by Falenko was broadcast nationwide. It was one of the worst interrogations I had ever seen for a case of that magnitude. Kulinski was berated, verbally attacked, and convinced that if she would admit to murdering the boy, she would go free. A jury found Kaluzinski guilty of murder. There was a lot of controversy surrounding the case, which still exists. In February of 2012, Kaluzinski was sentenced to 31 years in prison. On October 26, 2021, as Kaluzinski sat in jail for a crime that many believe she did not commit, Folenko was at Shane's campaign announcement, positioned right behind Shane's to show his support. The optics are not very good, but this is the Lake County way, which is not good for Illinois. And then let me just look at these. Okay, so the comments are still the same comments that were on here before. I just wanted to make sure there weren't extra comments from the last time I was here. So I am extremely livid at both of these men. All right. So this guy is claiming he was trying to do the right thing or whatever at this time. I don't know what he really did. I just know now that these men are running for a seat on the Illinois Supreme Court. that Melissa Calusinski is being dragged into it, and her case is being used, and he is stating right in there, the interrogation was wrong, that it was coerced, that she was told, "Say this and you'll go free," and he was the sheriff at that time, and he was a board member of the Lake County Major Crimes Task Force. I'm gonna be damned if anybody, Republican or Democrat, is going to try to use Melissa for their political gain. So the first thing I did is I sent this article to the current Lake County state's attorney, who is not the state's attorney at the time of Melissa's case. Luckily, that man was finally defeated, and there is a good man in that position now. I sent it to him. He acknowledged that he received it. I sent it to Melissa's attorney. I sent it to the person who is the Lake County Democrats chairperson. And I sent it to one of the Illinois state senators of Lake County. Because these two Republicans now, how much is Melissa's case going to come into play that they are trying to get on the Supreme Court, both of them, who are people who could look the other way when a 22-year-old girl who's now been traumatized that a baby died, that she saw this child who she cared for. And she has been in prison all these years. And they want the seat on the Supreme Court. What are they going to do to other people's cases? What have they done to other people's cases in this time? You know, that judge, that's the judge in Melissa's case. Things keep going back to him too, in trying to get her, oral argument, evidentiary hearing, new trial, whatever. You know how this works and all this crap, that it's goes back to the original judge. And there is so much more crazy corruption that has happened in Lake County and things that have happened in Melissa's case, that unless you're somebody who has watched Making a Murderer and you believe in Stephen and Brendan's innocence, and then that brings you to all these other cases like I have done, that you just wouldn't believe that these things happen. But they do. And this is why when I put on my political hat, you need to vote. You need to vote every election. You need to look at your ballot. You need to flip it over, because the people running for the other positions on the other side, they're not a senator or president or, all those bigger ones. It's the people who are running for state's attorney, people who are running for sheriff, people running for attorney general, people running for Supreme Court, circuit court. And you don't know when their position could affect you or somebody that you love. One of the taglines from the whole Making a Murderer case is "We all live on Avery Road." What has happened to Melissa could happen to you. And you not voting in that election for that judge, that could be your judge. There are people who just run for any position they can because they're just trying to get a toehold. And, a big thing in politics is name recognition. So you're gonna run for the school board because now people, when they look at a ballot, they're like, "I this person's running for judge, and I know that name from somewhere, so I'm gonna vote for that person." So that's why no matter what somebody is running for, it matters. Voting absolutely matters. Here in Illinois, I know there are people who don't like my governor. I love my governor. I worked for his campaign. I was out knocking doors for him. My governor has done so many things, so much more than I dreamed he could do. I have, it's mounted to my wall, a bill that was very important to me to get passed that I worked very hard on. And it passed through our Illinois House of Representatives and then passed our Illinois Senate. And when it got to Governor Pritzker's desk, I got to attend that signing, and I was given one of the pens that he signed that bill with, and I have it framed. But we know plenty of states that don't have good governors. Look at the way people are using social media to attack the governor of Wisconsin every day because they want him to free Brendan Dassey. But that governor has said from the start that he is going to go by certain rules for granting clemency or whatever you want to call it in, and Brendan doesn't qualify because you had to have served your time. A lot of time in this whole, clemency type thing, it's for people who serve their full time and now they're out, they're free, but they still have that on their record. And by having it on their record, it's making it difficult for them to get a job or whatnot. So now they need this off off so they can carry on with their life. So, is my governor perfect? No. He's far better than any alternative, and he has done so many great things. But again, that's governor. People always they wanna go vote for a governor, if they're people who vote. A governor race is an important one for them, but you're not looking at that school board. You're not looking at your village trustees, your township trustees, your library board, and then there's the law enforcement. Sheriffs are elected, state's attorney, attorney general, judges on all the different levels. And now you see the judge, the corrupt, crappy judge in Melissa's case now wants to be elected for Supreme Court judge, Illinois Supreme Court. And the guy who was the county sheriff is also running for the same seat. No. I keep you as updated as I can on Melissa's case. Her case has been severely derailed due to COVID. She was supposed to be getting a court date prior to COVID happening. And so that's what we're still waiting for. And like the Stephen Avery case, as soon as any information comes out that can be public on Melissa's case, I will bring it to you immediately. And if her case goes into court, I will be there. The last time Melissa's case went to court, Aaron Moriarty actually came from 48 Hours, who has been covering Melissa's case all these years and who did those 2 episodes that you can find on 48 Hours. And she filmed Kathleen Zellner. That's how I first saw them. We were sitting in the lobby of the courthouse waiting to go in, and all of a sudden you saw a film crew, and so it was Aaron walking with Kathleen Zellner, and the film crew's walking backwards in front filming the 2 of them. Dr. Rudd came to Melissa's hearing. Melissa Calusinski's case is my number 1 priority. I know, um, typically, if somebody knows me from the wrongful conviction stuff, it's Stephen Avery and Making a Murderer. But also, if you have followed me any period of time, you know that case and that family is a complete and utter mess. Melissa is a very good person. And it is just so wrong what has happened to her. And I will do anything I have to get the word out that Melissa Calusinski is innocent and she deserves to be free. I have talked about her case all these years. We've got many different videos of talking about the case. We have done videos where we have watched the 48 Hours episodes together and commentated while watching. So you can go into our archives here on the Justice with Jax YouTube page, as well as we've done stuff on Facebook before we started doing anything on YouTube. You can feel free to send me questions. But this case is really personal to me because Melissa is just the sweetest thing. I know I say that all the time. That girl is not murdering a baby, intentionally or unintentionally. So that brings us to the end of today's video. supposed to schedule one for next Wednesday, talking about covering the Amanda Knox case next. I also want to do I saw there's the option here on YouTube where I can make do a live video, but for it to be for subscribers only. I don't think Nana's here. Nana's the one that's always, nagging people to thumbs up and click to subscribe. Um, so something we've done on Facebook a lot, usually in the MAM Gossip closed group, is that we do something that we just call Ask Jax Anything, where we can cover any case, whatever. And so I think I'm going to be scheduling an Ask Jax Anything that's for subscribers only, where then I open up more. Um on things. So I'm thinking instead of the Amanda Knox case, maybe that's what the next one will be, is a subscriber only thing, because the Wednesday after that is right before Christmas. So I don't know if we will take a little break because don't know what people have planned for the holidays, or if I'll still just pop in those weeks and do something. But yeah, I think that's what we're gonna do instead, is an Ask Jax Anything for subscribers only. I'm trying to do these videos regularly Wednesdays at 1 Central, my time, Chicago time. And if you have any suggestions for cases or topics you would like me to cover, I have the email of justicewithjax@gmail.com. So you can send that there. So, and I guess I should say, in closing out too on Melissa's case, the same thing goes that I say on Stephen's case, is if you know anything on Melissa's case, as well as Stephen's case, you reach out to Kathleen Zellner. She's got the website, KathleenTZellner.com, where you can find the contact information there. So if you worked for the Lake County Major Crimes Task Force and you know something, go talk to Kathleen. We can't give Melissa this time back, but we can give her her future. Thank you, everybody who joined me for today, Melissa Calusinski Talk. I will see you all next week. Have a good day.